Hello, and welcome back to Second Act Sobriety. I'm Dr. Donald Crowe. In my 40 years of medical practice, I've seen nearly every face alcoholism can wear, and I've seen it staring back at me in the mirror. I've been sober for 28 years now. I appreciate the life I have without alcohol and drugs. I don't regret what it took to get me here, but I'll be honest, the early days were tough. Not because I didn't want sobriety, but because I was in a bare-knuckle fight with the urge to drink, and I had no idea how to win. Early sobriety is a strange time. We're all novices, apprentices. We think we know what we're doing, that we know what we need to do to stay sober, puffed up with a little arrogance or false bravado that usually surfaces when we find ourselves in uncharted territory. But the truth? We're ignorant about how to actually stay sober. And here's the surprising thing, that ignorance is a gift, because it means there's space to learn. The problem is, most of us start off thinking that the whole job is simply don't take the drink. We believe it's all about resisting, white-knuckling. What we don't realize yet is that resisting is only the first step. Still, if we don't take that first step, if you can't survive those first urges, the rest of your recovery journey stays in the realm of fantasy. For me, it wasn't until I was beaten by my desire to drink and relapsed that I learned how to hold my own in the rematch. As I picked myself up after drinking again, I was able to recognize that my relapses almost always followed a predictable pattern. First, a thought of a drink would pop into my head, unexpectedly, randomly, even a little whimsically. At first, it didn't seem serious. I'd think, well, that's odd, and move on. If I was lucky, it faded quickly, but sometimes it lingered. I began to notice that it usually lingered when I was angry, resentful, bored, jealous, or sunk into deep self-pity. And strangely, it could also happen when I was on a high, feeling good, but thinking, I should feel even better. When the thought lingered, it insisted on more attention, and that's when the great debate started. I'd argue with myself, bringing out every reason and every ounce of logic to prove that drinking would lead to disaster. Usually, it was enough, but not always. After 18 months sober, the urge overpowered me, and I relapsed. I'm grateful I was caught before it destroyed me again. But that moment taught me this: the tools that I had weren't enough. I needed something more to keep a whimsical thought of drinking from evolving into a relapse. As my mother used to say, I needed to figure out a way to nip it in the bud. I had to recognize the urge early and act immediately before it gained momentum. So I began treating the thought of a drink like a smoke alarm going off in the middle of the night. You don't argue with the smoke alarm. You don't debate with it. You drop what you're doing and respond. I needed a toolbox, a set of actions I could use on the spot to disrupt the progression toward relapse. And over time, I built one. These tools aren't complicated, they're not expensive, and they don't require superhuman effort. But they work because they do three important things. Number one, they buy you time. Number two, they shift your focus. And number three, they leave you in a better place than where you started. Tool number one, exercise. In early sobriety, I wasn't in great shape, but I could walk. Then I jogged. Then I ran. Even 200 yards bought me a few minutes and pulled my mind away from the craving. Over time, that 200 yards became a half mile, and then a mile, and my body began to change. The soreness faded, my waistline shrank, and my confidence grew. But the most important change? The urge to drink rarely survived past the first few minutes of movement. Tool number two, physical nourishment. I learned something simple but powerful. Hunger and thirst masquerade as the urge to drink. If I stopped and made a snack, or even poured a glass of lemonade, the craving often faded before I'd finished eating. Sometimes I'd throw together a quick sandwich. Other times I'd challenge myself to cook a full meal, following a recipe, trying a new ingredient. It was productive, it was engaging, and it left me feeling better than when I started. Tool number three, tidying up your environment. When a craving hit, I found that doing something, anything, to physically improve my space had an amazing effect. Washing the dishes, making my bed, mowing the grass, clearing off the desk in my office. Not only did these activities take time and focus, but they gave me something extra, a small but satisfying sense of accomplishment. And that feeling of, I've done something good here, was often enough to knock the craving off center stage. Plus, these were things that needed doing anyway. I'd come out of the moment with a clearer, more organized space and a calmer mind. Tool number 4, writing. I made a promise to myself to write something every day of my sobriety. If the urge hit, I'd pick up my journal immediately. I didn't need to write a novel, just a few lines about what I was feeling, or even what I did that day. Often putting disturbing thoughts on paper made them lose their bite. Other times, it showed me a pattern, that certain moods or situations were triggering these disturbing thoughts. The 5th tool was reading. In early sobriety, I always kept something to read handy, usually something about addiction or recovery. Some of it resonated. Some of it made me push back. But even that resistance taught me something. I had a strong bias to defend my old ideas, even though they had a poor track record at creating a working life. I found that reading was an efficient way to practice being more open-minded. Over time, other media, documentaries, podcasts, even YouTube also helped me learn how little I truly know. And this was really nowhere near as frightening as I thought. Tool number 6, connecting with another person. This one might be the most important. Isolation is fertile ground where whimsical ideas can grow into powerful obsessions. Connection is the antidote. Early on, it was the last thing I wanted to do. I thought I would be judged if I exposed my shameful secret that I wanted to drink. But when I overcame the awkwardness and reached out to someone else in recovery, the typical response surprised me. Laughter. This was followed by, "Of course you feel that way. Why wouldn't you? It happens to all of us." That honesty broke the shame. The power of those interactions never failed to knock out cold any craving I had. The takeaway, I believe that thoughts of drinking will revisit anyone who's had a drinking problem. For those of us who can't drink successfully, a plan to handle those moments isn't optional, it's life-saving. These 6 tools aren't magic, but they buy you time. They help you win the early battles, and winning enough early battles creates the space and stability to build a sober life where the urge itself becomes powerless. Write these tools down, add your own, and keep them ready. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Second Act Sobriety. My mission is to help middle-aged people who realize that alcohol is taking more from their lives than it is giving. Check out these other videos on your screen. And remember, giving up alcohol doesn't mean giving up anything real. It means opening the door to the life you deserve. I'll see you in the next one.